Welcome to the Work in Between, the podcast where we explore all the topics and daily actions that help get us to our health related goals. I'm Gretchen Holmes. I'm your host, and I'm excited to talk to my friend today, Vicky Midwood, who is a health and lifestyle coach, an addiction eliminator, and freedom and health creator. I love that. It's so positive, it's so empowering. But welcome to the show, Vicky.
Thank you, Gretchen. I am so delighted to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting to you today.
There are so many conversations that I know we could have, but the one topic that seems to be trending a lot right now, and I think part of it is because when we're talking, it's kind of in the new year, is this whole idea around body positivity. And I've read a few posts that you have put out about this, but from your perspective, what is the body positivity trend perspective all about? How are you defining it? What is it to you?
Well, I mean, it's been around a while. It's not a new thing. So
Mhm.
I think that's what we've got to remind ourselves of. And when it first came about, it was actually a very positive trend
Mhm.
because we were trying to help people just in general recognize that body shaming, whatever size you were, whether you were extremely skinny or extremely fat,
Mhm.
was not helpful to anybody on a mental and emotional level at all. And it was to recognize that the idea behind it was no matter what size or shape you are, we need to love the skin we're in.
Yes.
That was the premise of body positivity.
Mhm.
But as with all things, us humans love to confuse things and take them into extreme directions. And so,
Yeah.
what started off as being a very positive, I feel, trend and way of thinking and being has now taken on a turn. And I have to say, it's very much like feminism in that it's gone from something that was very positive for very tangible reasons into something now that can absolutely split people in half with how they think
Mhm.
and feel about it.
Mhm.
And we've got a lot of people who have turned it into being proud of the fact that they are clinically obese
Mhm.
and that's a positive thing and nobody should say anything about it if they're happy in their own skin, etc., which is just downright dangerous
Mhm.
and frankly stupid because we know that obese people are going to die earlier than people who are not. That's just fact. But also, it's giving the wrong message to so many people that it's okay and it's healthy. And that's how it's gone to an extreme to eat what you want and love your body anyway, no matter what. And I think that that's on the obese side of things, but on the other side of things, and this is the area that I work in, is disordered eating and body dysmorphia. And eating disorders go right across the board from anorexia and bulimia right the way up to overeating and being addicted to food
Mhm.
and all of the stuff that's in between, and there's a lot. But on the other end of the scale, why is it any different then, as people will argue, if they are trying to get as skinny as possible because that's body positivity and they love the skin that they're in, which is equally as dangerous as being clinically obese. And again, those people are going to die early. So I think we tried to start off with something that was positive, and it's now turned into something that really is actually healthy in terms of the way that most of us think of it, but at either extreme, it's massively unhelpful to the majority of people because they're confused about it. People don't know what to say. Am I allowed to say the word fat? Even the word fat was, you're not allowed to say it. Fat shaming
Mhm.
became a thing. But then what about calling somebody skinny? Well, is that okay? Isn't that just as bad? And I think we've taken something that should have been a positive thing and we've twisted it into something that is very negative and people don't know what to think about it. And when people don't know what to think about something, they tend to just push it to one side and dismiss it. So now it's no longer helpful at all, and it could have been. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
What
think.
what do
Go
you
on.
go ahead? Because I'm curious. I mean, because it becomes a real minefield
It does.
in trying to talk about this from an objective, like scientific perspective.
Yeah.
It gets
Well,
very muddled.
it does get modeled, but here's the thing. We both know and we both agree that health is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not necessarily dictated or categorized by a specific number on a scale.
Right. Yeah.
It is not,
Yeah.
right? We know for a fact that there are height and weight scales that were devised as guidelines for human beings, and they were devised a long time ago based upon people's longevity and what was recommended to be a reasonable weight parameter. And even if you look at those height and weight scales, there's a massive difference, right, between the lowest end of normal and the highest end of normal. It's massive, right?
Yeah.
It's not a tiny thing, which means there's a lot of leeway. But I think what we've got to recognize is that health over and above everything else needs to be a priority. And if we are using body positivity to encourage unhealthy ways of living, then it has to be a negative. And this is where I come from as a lifestyle person, because if you are saying, well, I love you, my body, and I don't care what size it is, but I'm stuffing it full of junk food and soda,
Right.
and I'm not moving very much, and I'm not getting out in sunlight, and my sleep isn't very good because I can't breathe properly, well, then your health is being compromised. And that's where I come from. And it's not because you are a certain number on a scale. It's because of the lifestyle choices that you are making.
Right.
And the size is a side effect of that.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we've got it confused. And the same thing on the other end of the scale. If you're hugely skinny and you're down the road of orthorexia or anorexia, or you're affrid and you're restricting crazily, then, and you're over exercising and you're doing everything else on the extreme end, that's not healthy either. No matter how positive you may feel about how you look externally, internally, stuff is happening that is not good.
That's really important to make the distinction that this is about the behaviors, the healthy or the non-healthy behaviors. It's how you are treating yourself.
Correct.
I mean, not what you weigh, because you're right. That's just a symptom of and a reflection on how we treat our bodies. But we are talking about absolutely, please love yourself wherever you are, always, always. However, we can't pretend that loving ourselves, no matter what we weigh, no matter what we're doing, is 100% just about the size. It is not. It is about what we're eating, what we're doing or not doing, how we are sleeping. All of those things that you mentioned, those are all really important behaviors. But I think when people start having conversations around this, it always becomes about, you just don't like me because I'm fat, or you don't like me because I'm obese, or you don't like me because I'm bigger than you are. No, it's about what ultimately is going to happen, even if, and here's the thing that I hear, and I've probably said along the way, my blood pressure is fine. I wasn't diabetic. The only health issue I had was that I weighed too much. And that was true for a long time until it wasn't. And
Right.
then
but
it became problems.
Right, but when you and that I get. So all of the health markers were showing that you were fine on paper.
Right.
But we can't look inside and see what is going on a cellular level. And obviously, we don't suddenly become diabetic overnight. We don't suddenly have heart disease overnight. We don't suddenly get Alzheimer's overnight. This stuff is happening, even though all of our markers and all of our measurements may be fine,
Mhm.
right? The damage is being done. We just don't know. We can't feel it. We can't see it.
Right.
And I think what we've got to remember is that the whole body positive thing is not just about weight.
Right.
It's about hair color. It's about skin color. It's about height. It's about disabilities if you've got a limb missing or two. These are the reasons why the body positivity movement began in the first place, saying we are all human beings.
Mhm.
And I think we've got to take on board, we all give a shit about how we look.
Yeah.
Right? We really do care. We all judge people on their looks, and we're supposed to. Right? We're human beings. The reptile part of our brain that keeps us alive and safe immediately is going to decide, is this person somebody that I should be around? Are they going to be a threat to me? Are they going to... And we do that by the external appearance.
Right.
We are going to judge, full stop. Right? We just are. But what the body positive movement was about originally was saying, well, that we are all human beings, but we've all come from different countries, from different cultures, from different backgrounds. And so there will be different hair colors. Believe it or not, I was actually a redhead. I was a ginger, freckly little kid with very white, pasty skin. Okay. And so I wasn't as redheaded as another girl in my class. But was she picked on because her hair was properly gingery red? Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff, if you've got somebody in your class who's an albino, they are different. And the whole body positive movement was about embrace the differences,
Right,
and see it as a positive.
yeah.
But unfortunately, what we have managed to do, because we're a fact-based and sizist-based, I think, globally, society, we have learned that size equals something, whatever it is for you.
Right.
And it doesn't help, does it, that in American TV programs and films and all of the stuff that we get exposed to on TV shows and on films and stuff, who is the one who is the butt of jokes? Who is the one that's seen as being stupid and lazy? So even as kids, we pick up on the fact that fat equals something negative.
Yeah.
And so the body positive movement came in for that as well as color and height and skin, skin tone. If you've got alopecia, if you've got something that makes you different and stand out.
Right.
And the point was, we're all humans and we should all feel positive about how we look no matter what.
Right.
But the extreme it's gone to now is detrimental to our well-being and crucially to how young people are seeing themselves. It's no longer positive. It's, as you said, blooming confusing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know even when all of my health markers were normal, within normal range, I was still very unhealthy. I was not exercising. I was not eating healthfully, obviously. I was probably drinking a lot more. I don't drink anymore, but that's just because I don't like how it makes me feel. So I think that we really have combined a lot of confusing pieces of the puzzle. And now what we're coming out with is that, not only should we love ourselves no matter, who we are, and we should love each other the same way. And there's beauty in all shapes, sizes, and whatever, fill in the blank. But now it has been confounded with this idea that you can be extremely obese and that's okay. And I don't want anyone to think that what we're saying is that you should not love yourself at any size. We should love ourselves. I have been, 100 plus pounds bigger than I am. And I worked on loving myself no matter what, accepting myself, because my main mission is that I think everybody needs to love themselves in order to get healthy. I don't think you can really achieve good health if you don't love yourself. So that, I think, is a given. But I do agree. I think we are giving people a lot of mixed messages about well, is it okay or isn't it? The BMI chart that everybody has been, the docs have been using forever, is very convoluted and does not equal health necessarily, because you can fall in line with a normal BMI and you could still be eating very unhealthfully. You still might not be moving. You still might get terrible sleep. You might be drinking excessively every day, but
Exactly.
your weight is in a normal chart. So I think how we talk about health, generally speaking, really needs to change, because we've got to get away from all of the easy quantifiable metrics to determine health, because that's not it.
I think you've got a point there, and I think it is changing because thanks to technology. I mean, I embrace technology. I think it's brilliant. We've got things like Aura rings, and we've got things like Whoop, and we've got things like Levels now, who mean you can get hold of a continuous glucose monitor, and you can find out a little bit more yourself about yourself.
Yeah.
But it's still very polarized, because there are the camp who are genuinely interested, who are probably taking the right steps to look after their health anyway, and they are going to be purchasing these things and signing up to the apps and using them. And then you've got the other people who unfortunately are probably going to be the ones who are eating more of the cheap junk processed foods, who are not going to be utilizing these things. And so they genuinely don't know what is happening in terms of what is going on in my body. I mean, we've even got scales now where you can actually jump on them and you can see what is your bone mass, what is your subcutaneous fat, what's your visceral fat, and all that kind of stuff. And even though your BMI may be normal, there will be some of those that are out of kilter. Mine is. So I treated myself to some of those scales as a Christmas present, never had any before. My visceral fat is excellent. My subcutaneous fat, not so.
Yeah.
Is my BMI smack bang normal? Yeah, it is. But am I technically over fat according to whatever charts they do these scales by? Yes. Do I know that? Yeah, I do. But has this confirmed it? It absolutely has. The difference is I know why, because of Hashimoto's, because of Sjogren's, etc. It's much harder for me to drop the fat that's underneath my skin than it is the visceral stuff. And ultimately, I'm not too fussed about it. Do my clothes still fit? Do I feel okay? And that's what I was going to come back to. When you said your markers were fine, even though you knew that you were too heavy or for health, it's about how did you feel in yourself? Right. Did you like what you saw in the mirror? Did you enjoy getting dressed in the morning or not? And I think that's where body positivity can come in to help us to go, actually, I may pretend that I'm happy with my size because it's the right thing to say, because it's positive. But the truth is I don't feel good and I don't like what I see in the mirror. Yeah. And that, if that's a catalyst to you then taking steps to do something that is positive, then I think it's important that we look at, how do I actually feel? The truth is, there's a lot of people on this body positivity externally, kind of influencer style people who are saying stuff on camera. The reality is that is not how they feel at all. The singer Adele's prime example, right? She was very overweight, and there used to be, if you remember, comments about, oh, she's so attractive and she could be even more attractive if she was slimmer. Do you remember? Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. To almost every overweight person ever.
Right. Familiar story. Yeah. But she then did lose the weight, and people were just like, oh my God, what diet have you been on? But while she wasn't trying to lose the weight and it wasn't a priority for her, she was very much, I'm happy in the skin that I'm in, and right? Truth was, that's not how she felt, but it's how it came across. And when you listen to stuff that she said subsequently, and you read about stuff that she shared, she mentally was extremely anxious and was suffering from anxiety, and discovered that weight training actually helped her to control her anxiety, with the knock-on side effect that actually she felt better. And because she felt better, she didn't want to then eat the foods that she recognized made her feel lethargic and tired. and brought the anxiety back. So over time, she lost the weight sensibly, not in extreme. Why? Because she didn't like how she felt, even though she said she was very happy. But
Right.
that's the pressure, isn't it? To appear
Yeah.
to be one camp or the other. You're either happy with your size and it's all positive and I'm good, or you're saying, no, I'm going to be on a diet and I agree and I'm going to conform. And people don't want to necessarily knock either camp.
Sure. And I think Adele's a great example. You know, she also had said that one of the reasons she did this, along with the anxiety and trying to get that under control, she knew she was going on tour and wasn't going to be able to get through the tour
Correct.
because it
Yep.
is incredibly taxing. And how she was feeling, she knew she wouldn't really have the stamina. And
Yeah.
so when we really are honest with ourselves, which is such a critical question, right? It's not how should I say I feel about myself, because who wants to share with the world that you don't like how you feel or how you look, or no, really deep down inside, I am not able to participate in life like I want to. I am not able to go skiing. I'm not able to get up and down on the floor to be with my, play with my grandkids. I'm not able to be, join the tennis club with my friends or whatever it is. It doesn't matter, in that when we are truly honest with ourselves, whatever that is the time that change really begins, because now we're honest and now we have some choices to make. And
Right.
if we want to be able to play with our grandkids, or as another conversation I had with a cardiologist, look, how do you want your later years to be? Do you want to be dependent on your children, on your spouse? Do you want them to have to lift you from the chair to the toilet, to your bed? Or do you want to be independent for as long as you can? And if those are your goals, then you have choices about how you want to move forward and make changes, if in fact you do. But I maintain, even though to save face, most of us will say, well, I think I'm very attractive and I'm perfectly happy with how I am. When deep down inside, if we were being really honest, no, we're not. And it's not because we shouldn't love ourselves. We're just saying, I can't do the things I want to do and engage the way I want to engage. That's different from, do you love yourself? Of course, I love myself. Am I able to participate fully? No. Let's be honest. And those things, you couldn't ride a ride at Six Flags. I couldn't go to Disney World and get on a roller coaster because I wouldn't fit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I can be as body positive as I want, run around saying that, I'm beautiful at any size. Absolutely. But did I want to ride a roller coaster? And if I do, I have some changes to make.
And that's about being positive, but positive in terms of you looking after yourself. And as you said, deciding that quality of life is what it's about, and allowing yourself to recognize that you can still be positive, but you can still make changes. And it doesn't mean that you're letting down the side or changing your views. And that's what, I think that's one of the other reasons why people feel that they've got to stick with what they say, because, what will people think of me if I've changed my mind? No, you haven't changed your mind. You're still being positive. You're just now actually taking action that means you're loving yourself in a positive way.
Yes. Are you loving yourself enough? I mean, put your action where your mouth is. Are you loving yourself enough to make the changes that you know you want to make so you can have the life you want? That's what this is about.
And I think what we've got to recognize, and I think it's an important thing to bring up here, is that this is not just about physically changing your appearance.
Mm-mm.
It's about how you feel mentally. and how your brain functions. And we know, you know, it's everywhere. You can't escape this talk of the mental health epidemic. And we also know that that COVID has had a massive effect. We knew it would, and here we are in the aftermath of it. And but the people who are suffering a lot are young people, particularly in their sort of late teens and early 20s, who were caught at that very difficult age when the whole lockdown thing was happening. And a lot of them turned to looking at their body and influencers as being something that they felt more in control over or could manipulate in some way. And for some of them, when they looked at these influencers saying, eat what you like and fat is great, they did exactly that, because it was being championed. Others went down a completely different route, and the incidence of people with anorexia skyrocketed, and all of the other things in between. But I think we've also got to recognize that when it comes to being body positive, a lot of people really don't love themselves. They don't. And this whole body positive thing is very hard for them to get their heads around, because they genuinely don't like their body at all. There's a lot of personal body hate goes around. And this is where the dieting industry, I think, doesn't do people any favors at all, because we're taught to restrict and resist and exercise, and it's you've got to earn your food, and you've got to do so many hours of cardio to be able to earn a specific food. And we get so confused with, where does food sit and where does my body sit, and am I supposed to love it whilst I'm punishing it and depriving it of stuff and over exercising to burn off calories? And you know, I did not love myself at all when I was what people may say was a very attractive weight, right? I hated how I looked, even though I had the figure that in my head, and I look back now, I would have loved to have been proud of. I couldn't be. There was no body positivity, even though I was technically a size, UK size 4. I don't know what that is in the US, right? But I still didn't feel positive in my body because I didn't like me.
Right.
And that wasn't necessarily about my size, but my size was the thing that I could control in some way. And I think that's where we've got to recognize that the whole body positive movement, it confuses people about what is their body. Is it a tool? Is it external to them as a person? Well, it's not. Who we are as people is so important and integrative. It's not just about looks. It's about how are we behaving. And a lot of the body positive adverts and stuff that supposedly people wanted, because I don't know what the average size in America is, but the average size in the UK now is a 16. It used to be a 12 50 years ago. It's now a 16. In the UK, not sure what that is. But we started using the Victoria's Secret classic example, Nike as well, started to use larger people in their advertising campaigns, right? Because body positivity, okay? But their sales plummeted. They've stopped doing it. It didn't work. Right. And this is where we've got to recognize that we may say that we're body positive, but the truth is we don't find certain looks attractive. We just don't. And that's about being radically honest. What do you find attractive? You know, and this is not just a female thing either. This is a male thing too. We've got to remember that for a lot of young people now, the trend is for them to have a six-pack and to be jacked, right? As very young people. And if you're not, you don't fit into that kind of image, then you feel that you are somehow weird, strange, not good enough. And the body positivity for very skinny, very tall young men and very obese men is just as powerful. Women seem to be more vocal about it and more verbal about it, but then we are for most things. But it's affecting men as well massively. And I think we've got to recognize that we need to change the whole narrative. We can be positive about who we are and how we feel in ourselves, but I think we have to be radically honest that if we don't feel good in our body, we can still be positive about making changes to feel better.
I agree. I agree. But I think that is a significant change in how we talk about weight, how we talk about health, how we talk about mental health. I will say, though we could go on for days about it, and it's a whole nother show, is the impact of social media on image and body acceptance and all of that, because we're always comparing our very imperfect lives, our very raw lives, with everybody else's perfect lives. Who doesn't want the life that we see on Instagram and all the other social media out there? But so what do you think, Vicky? So for anyone who is really struggling with this, who wants to love themselves, but they don't want to necessarily acknowledge that something isn't as wonderful as the whole body positivity thing has taken us. Where do we start? Where do people start to move forward and get some clarity? What do you recommend?
Well, when I work with people, what I ask them is, what do they associate with the word fat?
Mm.
Right? And it starts there, because fat shaming, body size, that word in and of itself can pull up all sorts of things. And that just opens up some kind of conversation and an opportunity for them to explore a little bit deeper. Where did that come from? What do they mean by it? I also then ask them the opposite. What do they think of when they hear the word skinny?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And same thing, it will start to help them to recognize that they've got some beliefs, they've got something going on in their unconscious mind that potentially is worth exploring more about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I then ask them, what do they find that they like, not love, that they like about themselves, in terms of their appearance, then in terms of their personality, and then in terms of what they believe that there are their core values that relate to them. And what that allows them to do is see the discrepancies between how they think about fat and thin, and then themselves as a person. And I'm starting to get them to differentiate between the external look and who they are.
Mm-hmm.
We then look at, what are the things that they feel that they want to change, and why?
Yeah.
And just getting a little bit of honesty with yourself, whether it's sitting down with a journal, whether it is just asking yourself the questions whilst you're out walking and allowing the thoughts to just flow, or even recording them into your phone.
Yeah.
I think just allows people to actually stop and ask themselves, how do I really feel? How do I really think? Do I even really know myself? Because those questions are quite challenging. A lot of people don't know what their values are, really.
No.
They don't know what they admire about themselves as people.
Mm-mm.
They don't know what they'd like to change that's not necessarily external.
Yeah. Those are all, I think those are really important questions to ask. And if you don't know what your values are, one way to kind of shortcut that, not that I recommend that you shortcut it, but I think you have to really give some thought to it, but is to think about what things really, really make you angry. Because things that make you really angry means that your values have been stomped on in some way.
Exactly.
And so sometimes we can identify them that way. And I would add the question, are you living the life that you want to live? And if not, how so, right? Is it because you can't engage physically like you want to? Is it because you don't feel as good as you want to feel? Is it because you don't feel as vibrant as you want to feel? Is it because You've got cholesterol numbers that are starting to climb, and you're worried because you have a history. It is very different for everybody. Because health is very individualistic in that some people feel healthy and are doing what they want to do. And others, those things wouldn't be important, but other things would be important to them. So I think we all have to be very clear on what being healthy even means to us, and then determine what we need to change to achieve those things. But being honest with ourselves is critically important. And I really believe that part of what we do, just because we're human and we're incredibly talented at justifying and denying and all of those things, that we have to be honest with ourselves so that we're not just justifying because we're all getting bigger. And it's the same thing in the States. The average size, I believe, is a 16. That if we buy into all of this, then we can feel better about ourselves, right? And that is something that is really dangerous, because it's going to lull us into a false sense of security that we're healthy and we are just fine health-wise, like we are.
And I think that's a good point, though, because we can kid ourselves. And it's coming back to that. Are we kidding ourselves?
Yeah.
And the truth is, a lot of us are. And it's okay to admit that you are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also okay to admit that you want something different now.
Yeah.
And it's not working for you anymore. And I think if we look at the influencers out there, and I think you commented on the picture that I posted of the people who had died before the age of 45. And this is where, if they had their time again, it would be interesting to hear what they really had to say if they were being honest about how they felt.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's about. People aren't honest for the simple reason they're scared of being judged and what others will think. And this is where I think working with a coach or a therapist, or, just being able, if you've got a really good girlfriend who you absolutely do trust, and you can, maybe ask each other, because if you both decide that you want to make changes, it's so much easier when you're doing it with somebody else who is there to support you, and you can talk about what is going on, what you're struggling with, and how you're feeling. But over and above, the original message of body positivity was a really good one.
Yeah.
And if we could take it back to basics and stick with that original message, as was the message for feminism, was a really positive one. Right? If we could just go back to the basics and the core principles and stick with them, then I'm all for it. But as with anything, we like to overcomplicate things, thinking we're clever, and we just make it worse.
We do, but we also have to remember all of those influencers who they're making money from being a little provocative and from getting followers and from getting more and more attention. And so even if they didn't feel that way, they're making money off that. There is a reason, this, just like in radio, when you have shock radio and all these different radio personalities, that when you talk to them one-on-one, they're like, that's not how I truly feel. That's a role I have to play. Right. And so don't think that isn't what is also happening here. They are making money. They're getting magazine covers. They're getting media attention, even if personally they may or may not believe that. So I think we all have to be critical consumers of what the messages are that are out there.
Yeah. And that's, again, this is about nourishing yourself in terms of what are you consuming, media-wise, social media, newspapers, magazines. I mean, the news is it's just so much stuff on there that is not nourishing to us as human beings at all. Are we getting wiser to it? Again, I think certain people now recognize, but I think and this is part of us being human, isn't it? We can know stuff but we can still fall prey to it having an effect on us. So we can
yeah.
know on a knowing level that
Yeah.
what we're seeing on social media is, it's touched up and it's filtered and it is the highlight reel. But do we
Yeah.
still end up comparing ourselves to it?
Yeah.
For a fleeting moment, we do. And I think the influences are never going to go away. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about. People are always going to make money where there is other people who are vulnerable and want somebody else to look up to or to help them to feel better, no matter how fleetingly, about themselves.
Yeah.
And teaching people how to love themselves is a huge, huge task if you just don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
It took me a long time, and it starts with, I believe it's in stages. I think you have to start to respect how your body functions first, and then you can start to like yourself a little bit, and then you can like yourself a little bit more. And it can take quite a while before you actually get to the point where you say, actually, I love myself. And I do think that that is very much to do with age and maturity and experience of life too.
Yeah.
And I think that's why young people struggle with this a lot more than perhaps we recognize.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Vicky. I think it's really important to have conversations about difficult and hard topics because I mean, that's what this is about, right? I mean, this is the world that you work in, and part of why I wanted to do the podcast is to get out real information and have hard conversations. It's always nice to hear inspirational stories, and I get as much from them as everybody else. But I also think it's important to have difficult conversations and even have conversations that might make people uncomfortable, because that is where the growth starts. That's where something might trigger someone to go, wait a minute, now I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with this. Maybe I need to rethink this. And if that is what we've accomplished today, I'm good with that.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think if we can just poke people to just look at things from a slightly different lens,
Yeah.
then job done.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
well done. Listen, Vicky, I love talking to you. I always learn so much from you, and I just love how you approach health and wellness and weight and all of those things. You take it from such a holistic, common sense, get rid of the nonsense kind of approach, and I, for one, appreciate that. So thank you for taking the time to be on the show. I can't wait to have you back. I just love talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really do appreciate the time and all of the amazing guests that you have on your show, because what you're putting out there is going to change people's viewpoint, and I hope is going to help them to take different action steps.
I no doubt. Thank you for that. But now you have a podcast and I know you have a website. How does everybody find you?
Yes, so my podcast is called Raw Chatter, and it is available on Spotify and Apple and the usual podcast channels. It's also on YouTube. The Addiction Eliminator is my YouTube channel. You can connect with me on all of the social media channels. I am Vicky Midwood on Instagram and Vicky Midwood on LinkedIn and Vicky Midwood on Facebook. Just Google Vicky Midwood. I'm pretty much there.
There you are. And I encourage everyone to check you out, because I really do. I listen to you, and I've been on your show, and I am on your website, and I just find that you have incredibly relevant and important information and tools that have helped me. So I thank you for that. And I encourage everyone.
Thank you.
So I just want to say thank you to everyone who has joined us today. I know that you have a lot of options of how you spend your time and which podcasts you're listening to, and you chose to listen to The Work in Between. And I want you to know that I appreciate you. If you have any questions, if you have questions about the show today or any of the previous shows, please don't hesitate to take a look at my website, which is GretchenHolmesPhD.com. You can find previous podcasts there, along with ways to send me questions or comments. If you have ideas for a future show, please send them along. I always love hearing that. And in fact, have booked some guests based on feedback that I've gotten from you already. So I appreciate it. I also want to make sure everybody remembers to love and appreciate yourself today. Don't wait until you feel worthy. You already are. So please take a moment and congratulate yourself on how far you've come, and we can help you get to wherever your goals are. Just keep coming back, and I promise you we will provide you with really great tools. So until next time, please take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. And the information on this podcast is not intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice. Take care, everyone.